Call this meeting to order. Kathy, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ann, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Reiner.
Here.
Mayor Lecklider.
Here.
Mr. Gerber.
Here.
Mr. Keenan. Vice Mayor Saleh. Ms. Genesee Zerker.
Here.
Mrs. Boring.
Yes, here.
God. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your patience with our somewhat late start here. Again this evening, if you don't know, this is National Building Safety Month, and I know that we have our Chief Building Official, Jeff Tyler, here, and Jeff, if you will join me here at the podium. I don't know if we have anybody else here. And Chief Wu. Proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the City of Dublin's continuing efforts to address the critical issues of safety, energy efficiency, and sustainability in the built environment that affect our citizens, both in everyday life and in times of natural disaster, give us confidence that our structures are safe and sound. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council and International Code Council Foundation to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown guardians of public safety, our local code officials, who assure us of safe, efficient, and livable buildings. Whereas these guardians, dedicated members of the International Code Council, develop and implement the highest quality codes to protect Americans in the buildings where we live, learn, work, worship, play. And whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, Americans are asked to consider projects to improve building safety and sustainability at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local and state building departments and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. Now therefore, I, Timothy A. Lecklider, Mayor of Dublin, on behalf of City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2013 as Building Safety Month in the City of Dublin, acknowledging the dedication and service of local code officials to our community and thanking them for their vigilance in ensuring the safety and well-being of our citizens. I'm going to present this to Jeff. I should say Mr. Tyler. Mr. Tyler, if you'd like to say a couple words, and then maybe the Chief would like to say a couple words about the importance of code to safety and how it affects his line of work.
Thank you, Mayor. And we would like to thank you for this proclamation in addressing Building Safety Month as a spotlight, if you will, for what we do in our community. Frankly, we can't do it without partnerships. And one of the partnerships that we have is with our local fire officials who also help us in providing safe buildings. So I've asked Chief Wu if he would say a few words on behalf of both departments, if you will, to talk about the cooperation between the two departments and how we promote building safety.
Thanks, Jeff. Really, Jeff said it pretty much at all, but it is a great example where we have similar community or services, both both fire and building, that we can mirror together and actually become more efficient, effective, and again, enhancing the safety of the community. I can speak here most recently, especially with the involvement in the architectural review team, and what I've learned with that group, and I think in the end, it's a tribute to all our staffs, because they're really the ones who get it all done for us, and their professionalism and their dedication to their jobs really make it easy for us. So I'd like to thank you and appreciate it, and thank Jeff and his staff as well.
Thank you both very much. Appreciate it. Moving on to citizen comments. With respect to matters not on this evening's agenda, we have Mr. Bill Spratley. If you'd like to come forward, please. Good evening.
Mayor Lecklider, members of council. My name is Bill Spratley. I am the Executive Director of Green Energy Ohio, a statewide nonprofit. I presented the council today with this document that is a summary. This is about to go to a printer sometime late tonight. We've been working on this. It's in a magazine. I think you received copies of it earlier, the quarterly magazine. But we are bringing to Dublin on May 17th and 18th the rest of Ohio for a tour around the city and surrounding areas on May the 17th. 10 sites. We're starting at the Platinum Lead building of IGS Energy, who is a major sponsor, along with the Ohio Energy Office, which is in the Department of Development Services Agency. We are taking that tour to one of the city's facilities, the CNG fueling facility. It will also go to the city of Powell, to the big solar array that you may be familiar with there, and end up at Jerome Dublin High School. In addition, we have 6 other sites. We have a solar home here in Dublin, another one in Powell, so that people can see solar homes. We have a stop at the Byers Turbine on 270, for those who want to know how a wind turbine operates. And so it's a labor of love. If you look at the picture here, these are the volunteers, and I can't say enough about this community, that it really is greener in Dublin. And we started March the 6th on a snow day when the schools were closed. And you'll recognize Michelle Crandall, who we've worked with for the last 13 years. We've been in existence. So we, with these volunteers, have planned this tour in the afternoon Friday for several hours. There'll be open houses. Then I would invite you, council, to go on the tour. If you have to be working that day, I invite you to come to the Golf Club of Dublin, where we have a 2-hour reception. And we are going to have 6 to 8 Tesla cars, because you happen to be the Midwest center of Tesla, which is the primo electric vehicle. We had something we called the Electric Vehicle Tour de Seoul last year. We took a volt around the state, 800 miles. This year, we're asking electric vehicles to cruise into Dublin. We have a gentleman who will be on the cover of our magazine. He's a Dublin resident. He's a veterinarian. His name is Steve Martinez, and he's setting up the Ohio Tesla Club. It's the owners club. And so these folks are coming in from all over the state, and there'll be several varieties of Teslas there, as well as other electric vehicles. So we also will have some of our speakers, including Kevin Moyer from the Toledo Port Authority, who is probably the most successful PACE program, Property Assessed Clean Energy, who will probably be at that reception. So I'd like to put that on your radar. So on the second page is the tour and information on the third page about IGS, and then here are photos of the places that we're going to be stopping on these tours and what technologies there are. And then I just wanted to point out the other speakers that we have. We're bringing 20 expert speakers from around Ohio to talk about several tracks. One is green energy in schools. We have more green schools than any state in the country. The Dublin schools are among the top in terms of energy efficiency. The keynote speaker is going to be the Dublin Energy Manager, Stephanie Drenton, who's shown there. We'll have another track on financing, and I don't know whether the council's aware of this. You have 4 solar financing companies right here in Dublin. We have 110 members throughout the state, and those companies are Solar Vision, Hall & Associates, Tipping Point, and another one that I can't remember right now. But they're all participating in this. We also have the Consumers Council, a job that I held for 16 years, related to utility regulation, Bruce Weston. And then we're bringing a speaker in who I heard at the National Solar Conference 2 weeks ago in Baltimore to talk about electric vehicles. So those are the tracks. But this entire event is also free to the public. So we have a public part that's free, and then we have a paid part for the expert workshop. So we would like your help in getting other municipal officials here, because from where I sit, all renewables are local. My dad was a city councilman in Worcester. I was elected to the City Charter Commission, the first charter, when I was in law school at Ohio State. So I certainly appreciate what you do every day, having that background. And so I just wanted to say that we're very excited, and Dublin has really stepped up. And what I'm trying to do now is just deliver enough people here to Dublin to be part of this super event. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions?
The drive-in for the electric vehicles, will that be at, is that going to be at Dublin, Jerome?
It will actually start the night before at the Golf Club of Dublin because the Tesla Club of Ohio is meeting there for the first time. We expect other cars. We'll also have a portable solar array that the Columbus Electrical Trade Center has. So if you can imagine, it costs as much as a fire engine. It's a portable solar array on wheels. It has wind turbines on it, TVs, and it has a charger. And so this will show people the reason we're into cars is that you can actually power your car from the sun. For example, that Volt, 60% of the miles came from the sun. So if we talk about taking us off foreign oil, electric cars, if we put up renewables, we can actually charge them. Most will be charged at night with coal power. But yes, so the answer to your question is yes on Friday, and then the ride and drive will be at Dublin Jerome. We'll also have a park and show where people that just want to park their cars. So we have a lot of people that just want to show the cars, and they would talk to folks.
Will that be at Dublin also?
Yes. So that will be the whole event is here for a day and a half, and so we're working with Clean Fuels Ohio, who's a much bigger nonprofit than us, and I know they've worked with you before, and so they will be part of the program also. We'll have a lot of good information. Right now we have 18 exhibitors for that corridor. We're going to have a free consumer workshop where exhibitors will also talk about what their companies do. And so it's, I know this is our main event as a renewable energy organization, and I can't say enough about Dublin, so we're very excited, and I hope you'll help us get people there because it's a huge opportunity, to meet somebody who lives in a solar home, meet the companies that put this stuff up. I think it's educational for city officials to learn about it, and we have a superintendent coming down from Archibald in the Fulton County, just to the west of Toledo. They put up the biggest wind turbines in the state at 2 schools there. We do wind testing, and so, from our perspective, this is all about local initiative, and I think you all have demonstrated that.
Thank you.
Well, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For being here. Thank you very much for choosing Dublin.
Yes.
To host this particular event. And, certainly, as you know, as you mentioned, Dublin takes great pride in its green initiatives.
Yes.
And, we appreciate it.
Oh, I left out the most important thing, Mayor, and that is that we are giving an award to the City of Dublin and to the Dublin City Schools, along with the City of Cincinnati. We give these out to multiple communities. It's the Ohio Clean Energy Community of the Year Award, and I'd be happy to hand it to you Saturday about 10 o'clock on the 18th. And so that's also in the magazine that's about to come out. We'll get you copies of it. We're kind of trying to get this to the printer tonight, but so that's our way of I think recognizing your efforts. But most of this magazine, this is just a part of it. It's 48 pages, is really going to focus on your community.
It's fantastic. Great. We look forward to it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here this evening. And Michelle, thank you. I'm sure you'll give us some more information between now and then. Moving on to consent agenda portion of tonight's meeting. We have 6 items listed on tonight's consent agenda. I would ask council members if anyone wishes to remove anything from tonight's consent agenda. If not, I would move that we approve the actions requested for the 6 items listed on this evening's consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And if you'd call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Salee. Yes. Mayor-elect Leiter.
Yes.
Mr. Reiner.
Yes.
Mr. Keenan.
Yes.
Mr. Hennessy Zerker.
Yes.
Mrs. Boring. Yes. Mr. Gerber.
Very good, thank you. Moving on to the second reading of ordinances, would ask that if council is agreeable, that we waive the rules of order and consider ordinances 30-13, 32-13, and 34-13 together. I would move to that effect, that we waive the rules of order.
Second.
And ask you to call for the vote, please.
Mrs. Boring. Vice Mayor Salee.
Yes.
Mr. Reiner.
Yes.
Mr. Gerber.
Yes.
Mr. Keenan. Mr. Hennessy Zerker.
Yes.
Mayor Lucklider.
Yes.
The clerk, I'm sorry, the names of the property owners are ordinance 30-13 is Michael A. Wade, ordinance 3213, Sean M. and Jennifer K. Smith, and ordinance 3413, Michael A. and Judith E. Teets.
Very good. Thank you. Ms. Ott, whenever you're ready.
Good evening. These three ordinances are to acquire necessary easements and present road occupied for the construction of a bike path along Brand Road between Murfield Drive and Arlington Parkway. I'd happy to answer any questions you have about these particular acquisitions.
Any questions? All right. Hearing none, Ann, if you call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Salee.
Yes.
Mrs. Waring. Mr. Reiner.
Yes.
Mayor Lucklider.
Yes.
Mr. Gerber. Mr. Keenan. Ms. Janice Zerker.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ordinance 31-13.
Authorizing the city manager to execute the necessary documents to accept the dedication of 0.311 acres more or less of right-of-way and 0.019 acres more or less of bike path easement from Avery Lakes Investments LLC.
Thank you. Mr. Hammersmith, whenever you're ready.
Mayor, members of council, you have before you this evening in this ordinance a voluntary dedication of both right-of-way and also a shared-use path easement by Dublin Building Systems associated with a lot split that was necessary to construct a building for a new business, Surtech, that will be located along the south side of Shire Rings Road, west of Avery Road. On the slide before you, the green line represents the shared-use path easement, which was necessary in order to move the path south to miss an existing utility pole. And then the right-of-way dedication will be from essentially the west property line all the way over to the Avery Road, Shire Rings Road intersection. Staff recommends accepting this dedication, and we'll be glad to answer any question you have this evening.
Any questions? Hearing none, Ann, if you call for the vote, please.
Mr. Gerber. Mr. Reiner.
Yes.
Ms. Janice Zerker.
Yes.
Mr. Keenan. Mayor Lucklider.
Yes.
Mrs. Waring. Vice Mayor Salee.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Ordinance 33-13.
Approving the partial release of a storm sewer easement granted to the city of Dublin as part of the development of the Dublin Village Center Retail Center.
Thank you. Mr. Hammersmith.
As the staff report indicates, council, or mayor, and members of council, this is quite simply the release of a storm sewer easement or a portion of that was dedicated to the city in 1990 when Dublin Village Center was created. An area was reserved at that time for a stormwater detention pond that happens to be located today where the AMC Theater exists. Through title search and working with refinancing the center, this was brought to our attention by Stavroff Interest, and they've asked if we would release this easement. Certainly we have no need for it, so staff recommends that we do so. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions. There is a slide that just generally shows the location of the theater, which is where the easement was located.
Any questions? Hearing none, Ann, if you call for the vote, please.
Ms. Janice Zerker.
Yes.
Mr. Reiner.
Yes.
Mrs. Waring. Mr. Keenan. Mr. Gerber. Vice Mayor Salee.
Yes.
Mayor Lucklider.
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving on to the first reading of ordinances. The first one is ordinance 38-13.
Authorizing the city manager to execute necessary conveyance documentation to acquire 5.12 acres with 1.308 acres as present road occupied, more or less, of right-of-way located at the northeast corner of Riverside Drive and State Route 161 that are necessary for intersection and roadway improvements.
Introduction, please.
I'll introduce it.
Thank you. Mr. Fogel, whenever you're ready.
Certainly. As council may be aware, the Bridgepoint Shopping Center recently came under contract by an interested buyer, Crawford Hoying. Crawford Hoying folks approached the city, being aware of our desire and plan for future road improvements in that area. Based on the studies that we've completed over the last few months, where we refined the impacts of the roundabout and better understanding of the road alignment, we were able to define the right-of-way needs for both of those projects as it impacted this property. And upon the completion of an appraisal, came to terms with regard to the proposed acquisition of the needed right-of-way. The shopping center itself is comprised of about 10.994 acres. The right-of-way that's needed, as you can see in blue on the graphic, constitutes 3.812 acres. There's an additional 1.3 acres with present roadway occupied that would also be acquired as a result of this, making the total acquisition 5.12 acres. The appraised price, which is mainly driven by the damage to the residue, as you can see in the after condition, the shopping center gets severely impacted. So once those improvements would be completed, its value of the center obviously is eliminated. Accounting for most of it resulted in a value of the take of $3.345 million. The agreements before you this evening are threefold. There's an agreement for the actual purchase, as I've defined. There's a lease back, which allows the purchaser of the larger center to continue to lease back the property from the city that would be purchased, the 3.812 acres, while it is still a center, and an option where the city could choose to pursue the residual if it in fact felt that there was reason to do so. Important to notice on this that there is no schedule for the construction of the proposed roadway improvements at this time, although we are moving forward with the next phase of preliminary engineering to better define those improvements so that as council proceeds with its normal capital planning and programming process, it can evaluate where this project would fit. The purpose for the emergency language after the second reading is because the current purchase agreement requires that closing occur by June 11th. I'd be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Any questions?
Terry, I just have one. I've gotten a couple questions from residents when they heard that this was on the agenda, and I said, well, this is something about, the $2 million Wendy site, and I said, it'll all make sense. And they said, oh yeah, I'm sure it'll make sense at some point, but right now, it just seems like a lot of money. And I'm wondering, all the plans for this area, is that all on the website? I didn't want to direct the folks to the website so that they could see all these plans if it's not there.
Yeah, I think, of course, the graphic associated with this acquisition is there, but on the city's website that has all of the Bridge Street initiatives, the proposed alignments are outlined there in larger detail so that you can get a sense of how the various road improvements fit together, including the most impactful ones here, which would be the roundabout and the relocated Riverside Drive.
Okay. I just wanted to be assured that that was out there.
It is available.
Before I directed people. Thank you.
And just to be clear, Mr. Fogler, in the near term anyway, the shopping center will continue to function as it is today. I mean, the shopping center isn't going away.
Yeah, our understanding is it's the desire of the purchaser. It's why the lease is in there to continue to operate until such time as either the roadway were to improve or they would choose to pursue some alternate redevelopment for their site, or both.
Okay. All right. Other questions? Okay, we will have the second reading then on May 20th. Thank you. Moving on to ordinance 39-13.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a development and a tax increment financing agreement with Vrabel Land Holding Dublin LLC related to the development of approximately 6.15 acres of real estate generally located to the east of Riverside Drive, west of Teller Ridge Drive, and south and adjacent to Teller Road.
Introduction, please. Thank you. Mr. McDaniel, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. As the clerk stated, this ordinance would authorize city manager to enter into a development and tax increment finance agreement with Vrabel Land Holding Dublin LLC, its successors and assigns. The developer intends to develop the plus or minus 6.34 acre site located right here on the southwest corner of Teller Road and Teller Ridge Drive as a skilled nursing, assisted living, and office uses. The development will occur in accordance with the preliminary development plan that you approved as ordinance 0612 and as Planning and Zoning Commission approved as a final development plan on February 21st, 2013. I know you're familiar with this project. In your staff report, I provided a summary of some key points of the proposed agreement. It included such things as the overall view of the project and the projected minimum value of at least $14 million, the donation of property by the developer, construction of new roads, which I had a exhibit in your report that showed how we may phase in John Shields Parkway, how a future Mooney Street would be constructed in the future, that the water line construction, sanitary sewer construction, then, of course, addressed tax increment financing, that a tax increment financing area would be established, that there would be payments in lieu of taxes relative to that, to include certain minimum service payments, and that there will be a TIF ordinance introduced at a later date. The increased investment would result in, as I mentioned earlier, about a $14 million plus investment. It will create 125 new jobs with an estimated annual payroll of $4 million. Also, the construction of these new roads would start to set the conditions for the vision of the Bridge Street District in this immediate area. So with that, be happy to try to address any questions along with Angel regarding the TIF
Any questions?
portion of the agreement.
My question is more related to the time frame for the building of these roads.
Right. Right now, the agreement says relative to John Shields Parkway Phase 1 and 2, at least Phase 1, no later than December 31st of 2018 is what we have in the agreement. That's subject to change relative to how the planning goes forward and the funding relative to a potential relocation of Riverside Drive and how we might do Phase 2 of that. So we'll be addressing that as we go through the CIP process and refining that more closely. I think that the 2018 construction would fairly closely align to the completion of the overall project. Phase 1 is to be completed, I apologize, Phase 1 is to be completed relative to the completion of their project, which would be within the next year to 18 months, and in Phase 2 no later than December 31st of 2018. But that's the part that I think we'll refine as we get down through the capital improvement process.
Thank you.
Mr. Keenan?
Do we have any idea timeline on whether this will be a school TIF or a non-school TIF, or how those discussions are going?
At this time, I'll defer that to Marcia.
Yeah, we're currently having those discussions with representatives from the administration and the school board.
Okay.
And we'll be reporting back to you in the near future.
Okay.
Other questions? Do you happen to know the earth moving that I'm seeing up there, the grading or whatever, is that related to this project?
It is. They have received permit for site work and foundation work. It's been a phased permitting process.
Okay.
And they have a deadline as well, that they had to break ground by a certain day. And
They did, and have to have certain, be able to demonstrate a certain portion of their footers by a certain time, yeah.
Dana, there's a lot of elevation change there. How's that going to work with these roadways? Is that?
Well, therein lies a lot of the challenge in the design that's still underway. Certainly there will be, we have actually done a lot of preliminary work relative to the horizontals, meaning the center line, how it lays out, as well as the vertical grade of the road. So that's been an ongoing preliminary design, and we're starting to tighten that down here as we go forward in the CIP process.
I'm sure
Yet
there's
this year.
appropriate engineering standards with respect to icy roads in the winter
Absolutely.
times and
Yeah, we've looked
sliding
a
down
lot
the
at
hills.
those potential grade changes, yes.
Okay.
Okay. If there aren't any other questions, we'll have the second reading. I'm sorry, Mr. Hale. Did you want to comment? No. Okay. All right, very good.
I must not have messed that up too bad then. Okay.
Yeah. Then we'll have the second reading on May 20th. Thank you all very much. I think we're at the end of our agenda, if I'm not mistaken. So to you, Marcia.
The only comment that I have relates to the report to council on the goal setting that we had a week or so ago. And we anticipate getting information and draft goals back to council for the next council meeting. So hopefully that will be all ready to distribute to you at your next packet.
Great.
And that's it.
Very good. Michael, would you like to lead off roundtable?
I have nothing, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Rick?
I have nothing, thank you.
John?
I just want to thank everybody for their support of the Dublin Arts Council garden party. It was a wonderful turnout, and as usual, a beautifully executed and fun evening. So just thanks for coming out and bidding and supporting the Arts Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Lee?
I attended the Columbus Chamber of Commerce Government Day Friday, They had a number of interesting speakers, and Dana being one of them. And I went to his workshop, to keep him on task, But they had, his workshop was really interesting because it had three distinctly different communities, Dublin, New Albany, and Columbus. And the subject was really talking about the zoning process and the differences between the communities. Eventually, of course, the woman from New Albany was able to indicate that one of their differences is, of course, they have pretty much a singular landowner. So that affects, of course, and speeds up the process of zoning compared to communities that are like ours or Columbus. But even so, they were all very close. Columbus does it so dramatically different, and most of them are infills, so it's a different concept anyway, and so you can do that in just a few days. But we weren't all that far apart, and everybody's now is taking the approach that we began pretty much with Dublin Methodist Hospital of team approaching major projects so that everybody's working collectively and can get them through the system. The governor spoke at lunch, and as always was his enthusiastic self, and you probably read in the newspaper that he did speak to the chamber about their position on some of the things that he has recommended, which they have taken a position against in his state budget presentation. So I'll leave this, the program there with Ann. I had an opportunity also to speak to two people who work for the Secretary of State who came to my office to meet with me, but really these are for Dana. I'm sure he has all of them, but they do have actually a wonderful collection of small booklets that help people start corporations and kind of walk them through the legal processes and government processes that are required to start businesses in Ohio. And so I'll just leave those there for Dana. Then I was interested in this article in Business First that was April 26th, in the northern arc of zip codes among the area's richest hoods, neighborhoods. It was interesting, the huge differential, really, between New Albany, which was number one, and then we're number two. The 17 zip code is number two, and yet there's $55,000 difference. So it's a very significant difference between all the communities from the New Albany community. Not sure what that says. Just that it was an interesting, sort of piece of information that I thought was worth noting. Yes?
It's an average, and you got a guy there who's got $3 billion.
Well, thank you for sharing your IRS
thank you, Mr.
tax.
Hale.
Yes. We're appreciative of that.
I didn't know Ben Hale was making that much money.
Cut him off. That's why we don't let him speak tonight,
That's.
Excuse the average.
Been busy out there, haven't you, Ben?
This in our, I think it was just here tonight from Christine Nardecchia regarding this boarding commission member code of conduct.
Yes.
Are we to be giving feedback in the next week or so to this, or what is the?
Yeah, that would be fine. We just put together information based on recent discussions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I think that must be all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Kathy?
Due to the hour of us maybe getting out early, I am got some issues I would like to research more and present at a later time, but will not because of the evening time right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy?
I just had two things I wanted to bring up. One, I had a conversation with Mr. Langworthy via email about some zoning issues that I had observed, and found out that we have a couple of things in our code relating to window signs, and specifically neon lit window signs, where the code is ambiguous. It's the opinion of our magistrate that the code's ambiguous, and so Steve made a comment to me that he was trying to clean that up a little bit. and with their, as they review the zoning code. And I would just like to bring this to council's attention. I wasn't completely aware that the issue was as bad as it was.
Amy, may I add on to that also, question-wise? I understand that perhaps in the Bridge Street corridor that they may be also a little different than the other codes. So while he's looking at this, because as I'm watching him go up, it looks a little odd to me. So when he's looking at Amy's issue, could he also bring back a report on the Bridge Street corridor on those signs there?
Sure.
We did change that.
Yeah, we did, and we can provide the information as to what's changed.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. According, especially window signs.
Right, and that was my point, was in the other parts of Dublin, evidently, if you're outside of certain PUDs that prohibit them, window signs are permitted, and, there are a number of them that have sprung up, and I've had neighbors ask me, they're not allowed to do that, are they? And so I asked, he informed me that they had some challenges with that part of the code, so I just wanted to, as I said, provide council with that information and ask to encourage staff to continue to look at that and perhaps bring us changes.
Excuse me, Amy, but just an observation. Somebody's doing a hard sell on these neon signs.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, there seems to be a proliferation.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
Anyway, I'm sorry. Excuse me?
Well,
I
and-
know you can get them cheap at Walmart. I'm not sure, but they said they can get these open signs like that at retail.
In any case, yeah, I don't feel that they are necessarily appropriate for our community standards, and having heard from a number of residents, I can speak to that. The other thing, I had a question. Everybody obviously is very excited about the Dublin Road South Bike Path and looking forward to it. I had a question from some Llewellyn Farms folks wanting to know about the connection. I sent Mr. Hammersmith an email about this, but asking if we had considered a Rings Road connection up to the sidewalk at, it's not Haymaker, it's the other one. Country House, thank you. Up to the sidewalk there, and at that point, that would give all of 3 phases of Llewellyn Farms sidewalk access or bike path access down to the Dublin Road South bike path, and I wondered if we had looked into that. I couldn't remember talking about it recently.
Yeah, we've just recently had a staff meeting to look at bike paths over the city and connections, and that's one of the areas that we discussed. In the past, the conversation has been, the thought is the path would be installed on the north side of the road when development occurs, but that's been talked about for a long time. So part of the discussion we had the other day is to start looking at putting something on the south side of Rings Road so that there is that connection all the way up to France Road. And it would also help with the timing on the completion of the Dublin Road South project. It would provide an access for those folks if they want to go up to France Road and around until that roadway gets completed.
Right, okay. All right, well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, and that was all I had for now. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Hammersmith, I wonder if you'd come forward and give us a real brief update regarding the progress of the Emerald Parkway project?
The widening project with the city of Columbus?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, things are going very well. The weather has cooperated. They're probably about a week away from finishing the south part of the project with the roundabout, and then they'll switch traffic over and then begin the roundabout at Glendon Court. You may notice that they've got curb in. They should start asphalt work this week. The bricks going in the truck apron at Lakehurst. So once that's complete, then it'll be the shift in the maintenance of traffic. And then there'll be the same sort of restrictions at Glendon Court as far as movements that there is presently at Lakehurst. And then the completion date is the end of July.
End of July. Okay.
Yeah, it's gone very well. So Complete General, the contractor, has done a fabulous job, so.
Great.
Yep.
Look forward to it. Thank you
All right,
very much.
thank you.
Yes, Amy.
One more thing, and that was just, I wanted to say thank you to Chief von Eckertsburg for getting the report about the Irish Festival and the measures. I will share that with the folks that are interested and then invite them to meet with us if they have any other questions or ideas, because I think they may have some ideas for things might be able to do. Thank you very much, though, for getting that together.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And then finally, we'd just like to both remind people and invite them to Dublin's annual Police Memorial Service, which will take place this Friday. I believe it's at 1 o'clock. Am I right?
Yes.
At 1 o'clock at the Justice Center. and that's in connection with this Sunday, which marks the start of National Police Week. So would invite you out on Friday if you can't make it. I'm sure that it will be recorded and you'll be able to see it on Dublin TV in the next week or so. So with that, thank you very much, and we're adjourned. Good night.
Yeah.